Welcome to Black and Blue Garage. Last year I started doing all the necessary procedures to get this truck started, and I actually did get the engine to start and it sounded good, at least for not having any exhaust on it. I think I'm going to pick up where I left off for a little while. I finished a lot of the things on my punch list, and a lot of things are half done, so I think that I'm probably going to rewrite this so I have a fresh set of goals and a bunch of stuff that I can actually mark off as I go. A little bit more info on this LS swap. This is a 5.3 Chevy truck engine from 2002 or 2001. I'm using a stock engine ECM with just a LS swap harness. I've run the intake to the inside of the cab, which was one of my favorite projects. That, of course, being made possible by flipping this intake manifold backwards and going straight through the firewall behind the engine. I'm using a later model stock truck style water pump, which was kind of a pain in the butt to figure out because I had to buy a couple of extra ones, and I don't even remember where to return these. Just a stock alternator mounted on the opposite side of the engine. I took my wiring harness and I re-loomed it so that everything would reach where it's supposed to. In order to start the engine and run while you're connected to your automatic transmission, you've got to loop your transmission cooling lines. So I just have a line that I connect from one port to the other, and that should work pretty well. In a future project, I'll be putting this derail transmission cooler somewhere, but I'm not exactly sure where I want it to fit, because where I thought it was going to fit doesn't, and so I'm going to have to come up with a plan B. So among all the issues that comes with getting your LS engine to run right, the one that annoyed me the most is this shop made out of metal, even with the door open, is so loud that I can't stand it with earplugs in. And I'm sure my neighbors would appreciate if I put some exhaust on this. So today's project is actually to get the exhaust put together on this so that I could actually start and run this engine and only be about half as obnoxious as I would be if I tried getting this engine to run right without doing that. Okay, so here's the punch list for today. For the exhaust, we've got tubes, headers, and the collector. That's that Y-splice that both the sides are going to come into one. A resonator, a muffler, exhaust hangers from the frame or somewhere underneath the truck, exhaust wrap, which I don't have yet, so that's going to have to be another video, and gaskets. So header gaskets, clamp gaskets, and anywhere else where I think that the exhaust could be connected and disconnected to make this thing more serviceable. Of course, I'll be using this Lincoln welder to flux core weld everything with 035 welder, so it's probably going to take me a long time, just like it did when I welded the sheet metal on this bed bob project. So bear with me. Let's go through all the parts that I'm going to be using today. So on this bench, I've got a couple of different products that I may or may not need. Here's the gaskets for the headers, which are on the truck already. Here's the gaskets for the headers, which is already on the truck. These are the parts that go on the bottom of the headers that have a O2 sensor port welded in. I also have some O2 sensor ports that I can, if I want to make my own, and I can't weld, maybe I can't weld to this stainless steel. In that case, I bought this flange so that I could weld mild steel to mild steel, and then it'll go from the stainless headers to my own stuff. I've got a bunch of these tubes. Well, this one's a 45. I got some 45s. I've got a 90 degree, 190, and then I've got a couple of these longer tubes here. I won't need much tube because in between those short pieces, I've bought this resonator, which on the inside you could see is kind of like got this little perforated insert in it. And then in combination to that, I've got this baffle style muffler. It was pretty cheap. I think I paid 40 bucks for it, or 30 bucks. It does say inlet on one side. I don't know if that means that you have to use it in that direction, but I think that I will just because it says to. I bought a couple of reducers that may or may not fit. Here's my Y pipe that I got last Christmas so that I could collect both 2.5 inch sides to a 3 inch. Lastly, I have this expander deal, and I'm not sure how well this is going to work. I experimented with it a little last year and I was having some trouble, so we'll see about that. And I've also got these style hangers, which I've got 2 sets, meaning that I could put one on the frame and one to the exhaust and hang it somewhere. And I don't think I'll need more than 2, because the front side of the exhaust is going to be supported by the headers, and the rear I may only need 1. We'll see. So that's a start. I think first things first is we need to get the gaskets on these headers so that when I bolt it all back together up on its final stage, I didn't build it probably 1/8 of an inch too small. With those headers put on, I'm kind of curious to see if a regular flux core wire will weld this to mild steel. I know this flange is mild steel because it's magnetic, and I know this is stainless, or I'm assuming that it's stainless because magnet doesn't stick to that. I'm going to see if I can weld to this using just regular old steel. Oh, it's welding it. It's for sure gonna rust. I don't really care. I just want this thing to last 4 or 5 years. I just have to make sure my welding machine is dialed in right, so that even though this is gonna rust and fall apart in 4 years, it'll at least stay together until that happens. So now I can take these 2 pieces and bolt them to the headers, then start to figure out how I'm going to angle all these pieces to make this whole thing work with this setup. You might be able to see that this thing spins, so I definitely want to stick a O2 sensor in there now, so that I know that it's going to be able to fit later. Now I have a couple of issues with what I'm doing here, because that piece comes down from my engine at this angle, and I need this to be somewhere right below it. So not only do I have to neck this up to 3 inches, but this has to go into this piece at an angle. I need to take this down there and see if this angle right here matches the angle of this. If that's true, then this is going to work better than I thought. Here's where my tube's coming from my header. And this is the piece that I would like to put in horizontally. So I think that if I cut this somewhere before the angle up here, of course this can't be, this has to be like that. I think what needs to happen, I hate to say it, we need to make our own little, do I really need to make my own Y? This is way too fat to fit in there, obviously. I tried so hard. Bust this piece out of there. All right, I am finally down to the last tack. Everything has been cut. And I'll give you that tour in just a second. This has been an experience for me. I've never done anything like this before. Where's my other piece? I couldn't get this thing to work. I don't know if I'm just doing it wrong or if I'm supposed to use an impact or what. It will not stretch mild steel tubing. I guess maybe I need to set this up on a press or something. But I was able to butt joint weld everywhere that I couldn't have an expansion joint. I've been manipulating everything, and I'm finally ready to weld this resonator onto this welder, onto this muffler. I'm really tired, and I'm hungry. That is the last and final piece to the exhaust puzzle. I gotta get all the things fully welded, and I need to find a 3-inch down pipe, so just like a 90 to shoot down at the ground thing. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I've got to get done before I can start. I gotta put the fuel back together. I gotta get some fuel. I gotta put some wires back on. I gotta loop my transmission cooling lines one more time, or set up the transmission cooler. To conclude this little experiment I'm having, I've connected the left side header, driver's side header, to a straight tube instead of a curved one, because I'm going to run into issues with clearance between the top of the axle pumpkin and the actual exhaust pipe. So I did it this way so that it would give me a little bit more clearance, and when I have full up travel, we'll be running into there. After that, I put a couple of bendy pieces in the tube, runs in front of the engine oil pan between the axle truss and the oil pan. On this side right here, I need to put a flex pipe and another clamp connector here, and then we run into this super custom Y-splice that I made that runs up to the passenger side exhaust header, and then I go to another disconnection point here, and then that runs over the cross member into a resonator, which is welded to the muffler here. I still need to put a hanger on the back of this thing. Of course, you'll have to excuse the ugliness of these welds. It's not good. It's probably the ugliest welding that I've ever done. I think most of it's because it's such thin metal, and I'm using 035 flux core wire. But once I get it all taken down and welded up as one solid unit and put it back on, I think that it'll be okay. Plus, I've ordered some exhaust wrap so that I can control the heat a little bit, and some other parts that will help make this exhaust system complete. So because I'm waiting for those in the mail, I won't be able to finish that today. So it might be the next video or the next one after that. Weld, exhaust, put in another flange, and flex pipes. The wrap is coming in the mail. I still need to do the hangers. The resonator and muffler is installed, and so when I go to start this engine, possibly next week, hopefully it'll be a lot quieter, but we'll have to wait until then to find out. Well, thank you for watching Black and Blue Garage. I hope that this video was as entertaining for you as it was frustrating for me. So I will see you next Sunday, and stick around, because after this I'm uploading another video today because I need help with my transmission cooler on a decision that I have to make. Otherwise, God bless. See you next Sunday. It's 100% not perfect.